right, cool. Hi guys, my name is Caitlin Hennessy and I'm an intern here at Sports Philanthropy Network. So I just want to say a quick thank you for joining us today for our Major Gifts and Legacy panel. And I will now hand it over to our moderator to begin.
Hello, welcome. I'm Howard Brown, and so glad you could join us at Major Gifts and Legacy Giving. What a great day two to start at the sports philanthropy world. Got a very esteemed panel for you that we're going to talk about major gifts and legacy giving, and whether that you're just curious about it, or you want to look at it as a career, or you just want to understand more how buildings get named and philanthropists make the world a better place. So I'd like to start and have our panel introduce ourselves, give a quick bio of how they got to this position and what they're doing now, and an opening statement, and then we're going to go to a round of questioning. If you in the are viewing and have questions, please do that in the chat or on Feedloop, and Caitlin will get them to me, and we'll get your questions addressed. So we're off and running here. So I'd like to start with Seth Rosenzweig of Team Impact first. Please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Howard. So I'm Seth Rosenzweig, as Howard said. Been in the kind of philanthropic major gift work my entire career. Fell into it, thought I wanted to be a university president, and mentor told me to get some fundraising experience. So kind of cut my teeth in traditional fundraising.
Recording in progress.
In both faith-based organization, higher education, including athletics. I ran the foundation for Boston Children's Hospital. Where we launched, finished $1 billion campaign. And now I kind of run a nonprofit that focuses on kids living with serious and chronic illness and providing them and their families with a support network by drafting them onto college athletic teams. So I've been in a variety of phases in terms of major gifts, principal gifts, plan giving, leadership giving, corporate, et cetera, and looking forward to talking with Jesse and Dean.
And just quickly, what does Team Impact do?
So yeah, we're a nonprofit. Again, we work with kids like living with serious and chronic illness who are struggling socially and emotionally, and we provide them and their families with a support network by embedding them into the fabric of a college athletic team. 2-year therapeutic program impacts the child in terms of resiliency and confidence, help better health outcomes, the family feels supported, and the opportunity to kind of transform the next generation of empathetic, inclusive future leaders.
Excellent, welcome. Jesse, over to you from the Miami Dolphins Foundation.
Good afternoon. Thank you guys for having me. Jesse Marks. I'm the executive director of the Miami Dolphins Foundation and Dolphins Challenge Cancer. We have 2 nonprofits under our corporate umbrella, the Miami Dolphins, the typical team foundation. Can somebody hear me, or do we need somebody to throw on mute here? I'm getting some feedback.
Yeah, we'll have Caitlin take care of that. We'll mute some folks out.
All right, perfect.
Continue, Jesse.
All right. The Miami Dolphins Foundation is your traditional team foundation. We focus in health, wellness, and community unification. Basically, your normal team foundation raising money from fan fundraising and corporate sponsors. Our Dolphins Challenge Cancer is really the behemoth in our nonprofit world. It's we recently just made a $75 million commitment to the University of Miami Comprehensive Cancer Center, and we raise that annually each year through a year-round movement. But reality right now, it is a bike ride, a 4,000-person bike ride across South Florida, and we're turning it into more of a year-round fundraising effort. Really an impressive fundraising operation on that front. I came to the Dolphins from the University of Miami Athletic Department, where I was their chief development officer for about 15 years, focusing solely on major gifts in the traditional.
I think we lost.
And say again.
We lost you for about a whole 8 seconds, Jesse. So you were, chief development officer at the University of Miami.
Are you there? Are you there?
You're back. You're back.
Oh, sorry about that. At University of Miami, it was the mostly major giving, in the purest sense. So strong background in one-on-one philanthropic major giving, and then moved over to the Miami Dolphins to change their approach from a transactional gift mindset to a philanthropic programmatic mindset to attract major giving.
Excellent, excellent. Wow, I'm impressed. 75 million to Miami University of Miami Cancer Center on a bike ride. That's impressive. We're going to move over now to Dean Brozino of the Rose Bowl Foundation. Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, thanks, Howard. Seth, Jesse, it's an honor to be here with you, and thanks everybody for tuning in. Yeah, you know, I'm a former Division III student athlete. I played college baseball, grew up in Eastern Pennsylvania, small town kid, and eventually found my way to Los Angeles. So much like Jesse's background, I spent about 10 years in the Division I collegiate athletics department at Long Beach State University, overseeing all their fundraising, external operations, and that's really what began to give me the itch of a long-term career path in philanthropy and fundraising. I've been at the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation for about 6 years now. What the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation does is a 501c3 that has a mission to enhance, preserve, and protect the Rose Bowl Stadium, the venue itself. We're one of 4 National Historic Landmark stadiums in the country. We're getting ready to host, hopefully, our 3rd World Cup and already have our 3rd Olympics booked up. So it's a venue that's known globally. But with that said, we're almost 100 years young, and with all those major events coming and as vibrant as we are, we're a 100-year-old venue, and that means a lot of love. So we can only have a certain amount of events every year because of where we're located in the Southern California, Pasadena area. And you know, I think what makes us unique is the general public just doesn't know that when we have Taylor Swift or the Rolling Stones or the Rose Bowl game on January 1st, those events, while they're very financially lucrative for us, they help us break our budget, meet our budget. And if the stadium at 100 years young is truly going to get better, it has to come through the fundraising of the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation. And since we were created about 10 years ago, we were created in 2010. We've raised close to 40 million from private donors around the country. And over the last 5+ years alone, we've increased our donor base by about 3,000 donors nationwide. And we've raised about 28 million in the last 5+ years. So it's a really unique mission. It's not your typical philanthropic tug on the heartstrings charge, but at the Rose Bowl, there's been over 100 million people that have come through our gates. And for us, they're alumni of UCLA, USC, the University of Wisconsin, Ohio State, Miami, you name it. There's people that have an emotional connection to this. And thankfully, we've been able to get them to contribute out of spirit of protecting this venue and keeping it vibrant. So it's a very interesting, exciting position.
Oh, that's amazing. I've been to the Rose Bowl a number of times, and everyone here in the Big Ten, where I'm here in Michigan, they adore the Rose Bowl and love that road trip because it's freezing cold in the Midwest by the time New Year's Day hits, when it was on New Year's Day. So let me read some statistics here because there's all sorts of giving, from online giving, digital giving. Major giving is different. And I want to kind of go through some statistics here and get some feedback from you guys on the National Philanthropic Trust here. Now, these are from 2019. With COVID, I'm sure everything's going to be different, maybe except for healthcare, as we were discussing earlier in our green room. But Americans gave $450 billion in 2019, a 5.1 increase over 2018. Corporate giving, okay, was $21 billion. It was basically a 13% increase in 2018. Foundation giving, $75 billion, a 2.5% increase. And I'm just, these numbers are mind-blowing. But when you think of all the 501c3 charities and all the need out there and every different things, from cancer to education to, save the whales, the pie gets divided very differently. And so, I'd like you to kind of, I'll start with Seth here, to talk about really just for someone who's new, what is major giving and what is the planning it takes to kind of start that effort for a nonprofit?
Yeah, and obviously, Jesse and Dean, feel free to jump in too. But I think, ultimately the way we look at major giving is looking at those who have the highest capacity to be able to make a kind of a transformational investment, or at least can build towards something. I think sometimes the misperception around fundraising or even major giving is that, like Jesse said, it's not transactional. There's an art and a science to it, but it's all about relationship building. It's all about truly understanding the motivations and what inspires and what gets someone excited about wanting to make an investment in your organization. I think a lot of times people over talk and oversell, And it's really about kind of strategic listening, authentic relationship building, and moving someone kind of across, say, continuum to get more engaged and excited about what you're doing. It's very, anyone can ask for, anyone can say, would you consider a gift of X, right? That's the final outcome. But there's so much work that goes into it around the cultivation, even the research, getting the answers to all of the rights, the right purpose, the right amount, the right, the right people to be in the room, understanding kind of how they give and what they want to get in return from a stewardship perspective, how they want to be engaged, and really kind of getting to that point where you make that ask, you've kind of answered all of the questions. And so I think you have to look at major giving as a process, and it never ends, right? It's a cycle, introduction to cultivation, to solicitation, to stewardship, and then it kind of starts all over again. And I think that oftentimes people, they're saying, oh, I don't want to go into fundraising. And the way we look at it, probably Jesse and Dean too, is like, we give people the opportunity to change the world.
I love that.
I think that's how we have to look at it. So I think, every organization determines like what is a major gift differently, right? Some organizations may see it as 5,000 or 10,000. Others may see it at 100,000. I think that it's really dependent on your organization and kind of how you look at the culture of giving. I've worked at mostly big shops before coming to Team Impact. And, in the major gift world, like at Boston Children's Hospital, we weren't going after anything less than $100,000. Now it's 250 actually. So it really depends on your organization, your size, your scope, et cetera, to kind of set that benchmark.
Yeah. So I guess you're not sitting down at Starbucks for a latte asking for $1 million, on the first visit, right? I'll hand it over to Jesse. Jesse, you've gone through, from the university side to now with a professional sports team. What goes through for the planning of major gifts? What are you looking for when people come to you to talk about and get advice about a career in major gift fundraising development? Oh, you're muted, bud.
I think Seth hit the nail on the head. Art and science of fundraising, or science of art of fundraising. The science is the really the work behind the scenes, the research, the interaction that the constituents had with the organization, their profession, their wealth capacity, all the things that you can quantify is the science of fundraising. The art of fundraising is where the magic happens. That is the relationship building. I tell everybody that's looking to get into major gift fundraising it's not just a transaction. You have to know your people before you need your people. And that's a testament that I follow in my work, and it's building lasting, meaningful, genuine relationships. Those relationships over time, the major gift officer builds a strong bond with that individual and the organization. Sometimes it's multi-generational, sometimes there's multiple gifts, but that relationship between the fundraiser, the organization, and the donor, if done correctly, it really has high net yields for the organization. Multiple gifts, generational giving. And I like to frame that up as it's our job as major gift fundraisers to earn the right to ask for support. And that's the biggest piece of major gift fundraising. And often than not, people don't understand it, or when they get into it, they think it's a transactional type sell. Transaction's quick. You get that money right away. You get X for X, or it's a quick pop. I call them dings. In major gift fundraising, it's a process, and people shy away from that process because the nonprofits are traditionally cash strapped. They don't have the long-term vision to sit back and build those relationships. They're looking for the quick wins. The magic happens in the major gift over a longer period of time. So I tell anybody who's looking to get into major gifts to really be a long-term thinker, have vision. You're doing nothing for the organization or your own career if you don't plan to build lasting, meaningful relationships with the constituents, because you can't close a major gift in under 18 months, a real significant one. I think that was the stat that came out. So I think that's important for people looking to get in the major gift trade, is really know that it's a process. It's a long-term process. You're not going to trust. I'm not going to give anybody $100,000 or $200,000 just meeting them. I'm going to want to get to know them, know that my money's going to the right place, knowing that I can have an impact. And that comes with building meaning lasting relationships.
Excellent. Dean, I mean, you're both, you actually are a grant maker and, a grant, go get money for it to support the effort of that stadium and all of its physical plant needs and other needs, naming and statues, you said. Where do you spend a lot of your time? Is it on the seeking of the funds mostly, and then tell us your process for actually having people apply for grants?
Yeah, absolutely. The majority of my time, I'd say probably 95% of it is spent on seeking funds. As I mentioned in my opening comments, being that we're 100 years old, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. There's a story that needs to be told, but at the Rose Bowl with the Legacy Foundation, there's almost a story to get to the story. It's not as literal as a children's hospital or the American Red Cross, things like that. And telling the story of the stadium, and then also telling the story as to why we need the help philanthropically has been something that we've grown into over the last 5-6 years. This is a very emotional place for a lot of people with a lot of different memories. We were talking in our group, prior to the start of this, and a lot of you had your own memories and comments about the place. And, it's our job to connect to that, because what we're doing is we compete often with alumni associations, with just the general annual fund donors of local schools like UCLA or schools across the country like Michigan, Wisconsin. I mean, we're all after the same thing. And even though we're great partners with a storied history together because of the university affiliations with the Rose Bowl, it's still a challenge. By trade, we're all professional pickpockets. Let's be honest. And that's a really interesting dynamic when you go off of what Jesse said about, it takes 18 months to develop a true major gift. Over that 18 months, that's 12 to 15 touches typically. And you get to that 15 touch and it can still be a no. So, you're playing with a fire in your belly about going out and not that you want to hear no, but people that are in our trade, that are in our fundraising business, it fires you up when you hear no. You ultimately want to hear yes, because you want to be able to, go through that 12 to 15 touch, 18-month process and get that yes. But sometimes philanthropy is not for everybody. And here at the Rose Bowl, our checks tend to have one less zero on them because of, we're not somebody's alma mater. We're very special to those people, but we're not somebody's alma mater. So to answer your question, Howard, I spend probably 95% of my time on fundraising. Our donor base is small and mighty. It's about 3,200, 3,300 donors. And that's everybody from 1 million right up to 10 million. But we also focus very highly on major giving. We have a very small staff of just 3 people. We will take those $1, $200, $500 gifts, but our primary focus is $25,000 and above, which is a major gift by our definitions, and trying to find something to name around the venue. That 5%, we were talking a little bit before the session started. We've just started grant making as well. We launched what is called the Rose Bowl Institute back in August of last year, and the Rose Bowl Institute really is unlike anything of its kind in the country, and it champions sports values, leadership, sportsmanship, citizenship, ethics, integrity. It takes those inherent values that are in those big time events that the Rose Bowl has hosted over the years, the Olympics, the World Cup, et cetera, and it repurposes those qualities in the form of celebrity educational programming. So whether it's a panel that includes, Brandy Chastain and the only female pilot of the Goodyear blimp, or taking Vince Young into a school in Austin, Texas, under the auspice of the Rose Bowl Institute, we've started trying to educate kids and make them better citizens in the future through these sports values, which we all know. We've all competed at some point in some sport, and we all know how integral those qualities we learn through sports, whether it be individual or team, are to living a strong foundational life. And through that institute, we've started awarding scholarships. So for those of you that are interested, I highly recommend that you visit rosebowlinstitute.org. It's underneath the Rose Bowl Legacy Foundation, which is our 501c3. But through the institute, for those that tune into our programs, there's applicability and eligibility for scholarships that can be applied to high school or college tuition or expenses and hardships that are associated with gaining your education for all walks of life. So it's been fun to get onto the grant making side, Howard, but the majority of our time is focused on grant seeking, and that's important because often it leads us to new ideas and new visions that can help on the other side of the coin, which is giving money away, which is ultimately our goal at the end of our centennial next year.
Yeah, key takeaway is that you got to be prepared for no, but that passion's got to be fired up if for a career in fundraising, development, or advancement. I'm going to go to Jesse. Take yourself off mute, Jesse. Take me back to your days at the University of Miami, and then to your Dolphin days, and talk to me. We've all walked around a college campus, and you have these names on it, basically with people's names and or foundations and. Every stadium has a name. Take me through naming, in a college environment and naming for professional sports and a little bit for our group here and those watching.
Yeah, it's completely different. Naming on a college campus is purely philanthropic, usually involved with building or constructing, renovating a facility. Naming is usually in perpetuity for the life of the building or the life of the useful space. When we sit down with contributors at the University of Miami, to my last project before I left was our indoor practice facility for football. It was a $50 million project. We named every spot in that building because people wanted their names up associated with the University of Miami football program. But in reality, they wanted to help support us to launch the program to new heights and get back to the days when we were in the Rose Bowl in 2001. That was their main reason in giving. The naming is usually an icing on the cake when you're dealing with rooms and auditoriums and things like that. When you're talking about the whole building, that's a different story. Those are legacy type gifts where you're putting your name on the outside of a building or naming rights, so to speak, in the professional world. Which are sponsorships. So one's in perpetuity. When you get to the professional sports side and you're talking about naming rights, you're talking about a business-to-business partnership type deal. There's not a tax deduction for those. It's usually for marketing rights. My counterparts in the Dolphins partnerships, that's what they're dealing with every day and working with. It's a more of a transactional type asset sale, where when we're on the philanthropic side, it's more along the lines of making a tangible impact to have a desired result, and those donors investing their dollars to see that result. So at University of Miami, it's building buildings to help with competition, giving student athletes the best resources, XYZ. So a little bit different than the professional side. Now on the Dolphin side for us, we dabble in a little bit of both, but we don't have naming opportunities for buildings. We're in the global entertainment destination. We're pure transactional partnerships on the naming side. We can name programs and cancer grants and things like that, but that's the extent of our naming.
No, I appreciate that, making those distinctions. People need to understand that to potentially, naming the stadium or that is really for advertising purposes to get branding and potentially, sponsorship dollars in, and it's a corporate to corporate transaction. Whereas on the school campuses and others, those naming rights are philanthropic. So thanks for delineating that. I'm going to move to Seth. Seth. Can you explain a little bit what legacy and planned giving bequests are and what that means? Because it's a type of giving that is typically not done until sometimes later in life, but, explain that to our group here.
Yeah, so, I think the major gift work that we're talking about is obviously kind of done in you obviously have the conversation and then obviously get resources usually within a multi-year period. I think if you look at kind of the need for diversification of revenue that a lot of nonprofits and other organizations need, they look at it kind of multi-tiered. I think where planned giving and legacy giving comes in is it's kind of a long game, right? You want to find those loyal, especially those who have given like $20 every year in perpetuity, or some of your best prospects that are such loyal to the organization. You want to give them an opportunity to make a bigger impact. And so planned giving, there's a variety of vehicles, but basically, you can include an organization in your estate plans. You can look at a variety of kind of annuity-based vehicles that basically allow you to give a legacy gift to the organization, obviously after you pass away, that can have an impact in perpetuity. What we find is that, there's a variety of vehicles. It's pretty easy to do. It's a much longer game. There's also a perception issue that it's always older people. And True. I think that the way that we look at it, at organizations I've been a part of is that you want to look at loyalty and you want to look at getting people engaged earlier so that you can steward them correctly and make them feel more closely. And then obviously when they pass, there's usually a transformational kind of liquidity opportunity for the organization. And so, I think that it's a great diversification strategy. It's still about relationship building. It's long-term relationship building. There's a lot of research around kind of looking at loyalty and kind of what metrics you should look at to figure out who your potential great plan giving prospects are. But sometimes, I'll give you one story. We had, when I was at my alma mater, we had a person who was giving, when I worked at GW, where I went to and helped, with a campaign there. We met with this woman, and I met with her, a variety of times. She was giving like $20, $50, and then it became like $150 a year for 40 plus years. And that was what she was comfortable with. She actually did not tell us we were in her estate plans. And that, when she passed away, she ended up giving like a $6 million, had a $6 million request for us that obviously named a scholarship for something that she cared about. And so for us, it was like, you have to realize that the long game, the relationship building, the opportunity to kind of connect people both annually, kind of on leadership giving, an annual gift, a major gift, and a plan gift is really what you strive for as fundraisers, is kind of that like diversification where you can kind of get people to give annually, major gift, and plan giving. And I think sometimes people who feel like they don't have the liquidity to make that big gift during their lifetime, this is a great opportunity for them to make an impact in perpetuity.
That's a really great explanation for those out there, viewing. I sit on the advancement committee for Babson College. We're a small, number one in entrepreneurism, Division III sports. And I've seen cash, equity, stocks, property, real estate, insurance, all these sorts of vehicles that turn into, basically cash for the college for use, scholarships, buildings, hire faculty. It's really wonderful. I have yet to see a Bitcoin or crypto, but I'm sure it's happened.
Stay tuned.
That's coming.
Is it coming?
Yeah, it's coming. Mostly with NFTs, non-fungible tokens for auctions and things like that. You're not going to see a school probably accept a non-regulated currency for tax deduction anytime soon. But a school could take it and not give a tax deduction. But people are auctioning off NFTs to raise money for charity. I don't know how big the market's been bigger with celebrities and things like that, but it's got to be the right environment, I think.
Well, I got to tell you that Mia Hamm's original Sports Illustrated baseball card just sold for $34,000 yesterday. So that's not a small, ton of money. But I guess, raising money through memorabilia and auctions is, I know we had sessions on those. So again, different types of fundraising that are going on here. So let me talk about the competitive nature. People's, give to what they what they know, what they believe in. Listen, there's a lot of causes out there. As in my opening, I talked about that. You can give to cancer, you can give to higher education. Why give to sports? And talk about and take me through that. Just the competitiveness and who you're competing with mostly and do that. We'll start with Dean because you're actively you have a specific. It's fairly specific as to what your ask is.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's a great question. And, we've kind of adopted the university model here at the Rose Bowl Stadium. You see a corporate advertisement behind me there with Honda on our gate, but the Rose Bowl is relatively a clean venue. We don't have naming rights on the stadium. There's probably only 10 to 15 corporate partners overall. And we'll always stay that way. And part of that, leads to the issue of money. We're turning 100 years young and, we could sell a corporate sponsorship and name the venue for 100 million, but it's not, that's not really in the cards for us because the Rose Bowl has always been this pure, genuine type of a venue. And naming the game is another thing, but the venue itself has been relatively clean. So what we've done over the course of the last probably 5-6 years, we've started growing our own donor naming opportunities because, as mentioned, a lot of times our gifts are a little bit smaller than a university. So behind my left shoulder here is a statue of Jackie Robinson. He grew up a stone's throw from here, played on the Rose Bowl field, is still a record holder, played for Pasadena City College before he went to UCLA and and the rest is history. We know that, and it's still impacting society today. We added statues to our venue, starting with Jackie back in 2017. Now we have 3, and we're working on a 4th. That Jackie statue generated $500,000 for us, of which about 70,000 paid for the actual bronzing and design and just building of the sculpture, whereas the stadium and the foundation got the lion's share of that $500,000 commitment. So we were able to go engage a donor in the spirit of Jackie Robinson. Maybe that donor didn't have the spirit of giving behind them to support the stadium, but as soon as we injected Jackie Robinson into the conversation, we hit a different chord with that donor. And we've done the same around the venue, from identifying Heisman winners to building out a museum. We haven't announced it yet, but the state of California has no high school football Hall of Fame. That's coming to the Rose Bowl, and that's something we were able to generate multi-million dollars in gifts and giving off of, because that's just something that resonated with some donors that we had in the pipeline. So I think, it's the difference between fundraising and sales. And I think Jesse and Seth would agree with this. I mean, it's a long game, as the guys have identified, and you've identified, Howard. But you just don't know when people are going to pop and if they're going to pop. And you just got to kind of be patient and trust that process. I mean, the people that donated to the California High School Football Hall of Fame to be located here, they've been in our family, our Rose Bowl family, however you want to identify it, as premium seat holders, donors, et cetera, small donors for about a decade. And this is the first time they've given a major gift. And it was just, the treatment of those people and those potential prospects through time. Seth told a great story about a planned gift that didn't even know about. I mean, I've had experiences like that as well. You never want to take no and walk away. You never want to take hesitancy to write a check and walk away. You want to take that relationship. It's almost like you're dating a significant other. You know what I mean? Like you're dating a pool of donors, and you just got to have thick skin, and you have to be able to just wait that process out if you want to have that marriage. And for us at the stadium, we've been able to create different donor naming opportunities around the auspice of the Rose Bowl, and still keep that cleanly nature, and generate the majority of our funds.
Awesome. Great response. I want to switch this a little bit, because I have to tell you that this has been a emotional year. We went, a long time where sports was in a bubble, and now we're starting to come out of it. Although some people think COVID's over, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Let's hope it isn't. But just these playoffs with the NHL and NBA, sports is I think going to be open for business. Starting this August. I know the college campuses are opening. It's really a shame that North Carolina State team, got eliminated in the College World Series. It's just the effects of this environment that we're in. But tell me the effects of going virtual, and also tell me the effects of COVID. I'll start with you, Jesse, where the weather's always great in Southern Florida, but still your donors are from everywhere. So talk about this pandemic, how it's affected, relationships, and what the hybrid world of fundraising looks like.
So I'll address it in 2 fronts. I'll address it in fundraising in general, and then major gifts. So fundraising in general, hybrid's here to stay. We have a in-person bike ride. We went hybrid this year. We did in person, and we did virtual. Virtual raised $800,000 with no expenses.
Everyone was riding their Pelotons.
Whatever they wanted to do. If they wanted to paddleboard, they could do whatever they want. So, but that's a lot of money, and with pretty little expense at the end of the day. So we're going to keep virtual with us. I think the virtual world has opened new horizons. Now you don't need to necessarily travel to see your donors. We can hop onto a Zoom call, and we're in Michigan, California, everywhere, and we're connected via the computer. That breeds a new horizon for giving and relationships. So I do think virtual is here to stay. I think in the major gift fundraising, I think that's a little bit more nuanced. I think you still have to develop these lasting, meaningful relationships, and you have to get to know people, get to know their families. If I'm asking people to donate to an event or make an annual gift, we could do that virtually, but to sit down and make a leadership commitment or a 6-figure to 7-figure commitment, I'm not doing that over a screen unless I already have a pre-existing relationship. And I do think that things are going to be roaring again come August, September, October in the major gift world. People are starting to get back out, make face-to-face visits, have those touch points. It's one of the things I miss most about the University of Miami is I'm in a different type of fundraising role now I'm not traveling around the country, visiting people on their turfs, developing those relationships. But that's going to be the focus for all major gift fundraisers, to have those personal meetings start back up shortly, because that's where the magic happens. I'll also say that initiative contact's good, whether it's on Zoom, whether it's a phone call, whether it's a text message, whether it's in person. Pick up the phone, say hello, say what's up, ask how people and their families are doing. That's really the key. And you never know where those conversations will go. I closed a $500,000 gift by texting somebody once and saying, well, hey, do you see our new project? He goes, yeah, count me in for 500,000. It was that quick, just because I said hello. So keep that. It doesn't happen unless you have the relationship, but it's initiative contact opens the door all the time, for even if it's just a hello, but it can lead to something else. So I talk about that a lot in terms of fundraising. So the ease of which communication has happened because of COVID is here to stay, but it doesn't take the place of traditional in-person meetings by any means.
Yeah, I want to, if I could jump in there, Howard,
Please do.
I want to double down on what Jesse said, because he's something very important. And I think with today's generation and the ease of texting, and now the ease of coming out of a pandemic and being virtual with folks, Jesse's absolutely right. This hybrid model is here to stay. It's helped us all reach more people than we probably ever could have imagined in a 14-month period, because we've been able to go hybrid. Our Roseville Institute launched last year, as I mentioned, and we were able to hit kids in 7 countries and 33 states. That would have never happened if we didn't have COVID. So there are some silver linings, but Jesse said something that rings true. I think that goes a bit understated and taken for granted by a lot of fundraising professionals is, he texted that donor because he had a relationship with that person. That's not Jesse going out and texting somebody blindly or going out on a whim. He had a relationship with that donor to text. And I think a lot of times, especially with this generation that wants to fundraise and wants to learn and grow a career in our business, that often is taken as almost more important than taking the time for those face-to-faces and building the reputation. I mean, writing thank you notes, reaching out, just checking in on family, seeing things in the news that affect your donors and your corporate supporters and touching base with them. I mean, there's a lot to our business. If you play your cards right, and Seth and Jesse, I don't want to speak for you all, but hearing you talk, I think it's true. If you play your cards right, your donor or your prospect's going to lean in and say, how can I help you? And they're going to almost take the asking and the solicitation off of your plate, because your donor wants to give to you first, even more so than they want to give your cause. They want to know how genuine you are. They want to know you're invested in it. They know what you do. They know you're trying to get in their wallet and try to get in their checkbook, their trust, whatever it is. But they want to understand that you're genuine about it and you're not salesy about it. And I think that's the difference between sales and development. It's a long play, and there's a lot of unknowns out there about it. And if you consistently focus on the end game, I have to get the gift. I have to get the gift. I have to ask. Would you rather ask now and get a $20,000 commitment, or would you rather wait a year, continue to get to know this person, and all of a sudden you get a text like Jesse got, and it's $500,000? So in our business, you can't cut off your nose to spite your face for that immediate gratification of a gift. Sometimes you have to play the smart game and the long game and be relationship driven with these folks and not rely on texting and Zoom and things. I mean, there's a time and a place for that, as we've all learned, and it'll continue to exist in our world. But it's been so refreshing being able to get in front of people over this last month and a half, again, because of how hungry they've been for that personal touch and that personal attention. So I think Jesse's stories there are solid, and they're going to be in our industry for a long time. But he also makes a great point. I mean, you got to have these relationships, and you got to be able to take that step in a genuine manner to convert those people from not just supporters, but to donors.
Yeah.
So
And
go ahead, Jesse.
yeah, I'd say another thing, and as for major gift fundraisers is you're always going to get criticism or critiques. You're not working quick enough. I could drive revenue quicker. I know, Deedon, you probably saw that on the college athletics side. The ticket sales can do it. It is a long-term play. We're in a totally different world. And I one of my coworkers at University of Miami always used to say, what have you done today to put a deposit in your donor's bank account? And I love that saying, because it's okay. Is it responding quickly to their phone calls? Is it helping make a connection across town? Is it getting them into a restaurant that they can't get a restaurant? Is it playing a golf course?
You're on mute.
These are all things that we use to build lasting, meaningful relationships. And then he said, once you put enough deposits in over a period of time and you built that relationship, you've earned the right to ask for a withdrawal. And that's the fundraiser's job right there, is knowing when to withdraw.
I agree. And I'm the takeaway from both you guys, and I'm going to go to Seth in a second, is trust. Building that trust, building that relationship. And that is not a coffee at a Starbucks. It is time intensive, and it has to be done with, full integrity. And it's really is the long game, and it can be super rewarding, but super challenging. Nothing's easy. Seth, I want to go to you, because how do you find these donors? We're in a world of analytics and databases and wealth engines, and besides alumni databases that schools use, where do we find these people that want to give, or how do they find you?
So I think, in every organization is a little bit different. I think, for universities, like you said, it's usually alumni, parents, those who are in the community. So if you have a built-in constituency, you kind of understand your universe a little bit more specifically. For example, in the academic medicine space, it was grateful patients, right? So like where I'm now, it's much more broader universe. I think that you have to look at kind of what are the intersection on your mission that are going to resonate with someone, and try to segment your universe so that you can figure out what population makes sense. A lot of tools out there, whether it's artificial intelligence tools, or whether it's analytics, where people are giving to other organizations. A lot of things can be done with spending very little money to kind of begin to narrow in the funnel of who might be right for your organization. But I think it first starts with, how do you align the priorities of your organization, your mission, to those who would care about that first? So for example, Team Impact, I work with sick kids, right? So someone who either had a childhood illness or had cancer or had one of the different areas we work with, or his family's been impacted it. And I work with kind of college athletic team. So those who have played college athletics, those who are huge boosters to their alumni or athletic departments of the universities, you kind of got to narrow in. But honestly, this is all about, once you kind of narrow in, it's like this concentric circle game. Every person you're talking to, ask who else they know, ask who else they can connect you to. Go in there, not just looking at them, but seeing how they can kind of broaden your circle. And I think that word of mouth, and honestly, peer-to-peer connections, is the fastest way to grow your base if you don't have a built-in constituency. And I would just say one other thing, like track your data really well. Like, if you have a moves management process where you're tracking where someone is, if you're doing notes after every meeting, you don't want to be there asking the same questions over and over again and not knowing you're doing your homework and not tracking that and not understanding how people like to be communicated to. So like, it's great to kind of acquire information in donors, and it's better to be able to obviously have that live in a CRM or database that you can use to your advantage.
Yeah, so a donor can start, from an email list, getting to know your organization, can come to an event. There's so many avenues in,
many ways.
and to be able to build on it from there. And I think your point, you were talking about donor databases or customer relationship management, CRM, because knowing the customer, knowing the donor, they have different peculiarities. You want to know and say happy birthday to them on their birthday. And so all these are key touch points.
It's the little things that matter. They want to, you want to know their family. You want to ask the right question. You don't want it to be, as Deedon and Jesse said, like, it can't just be this transaction where, it's once a year, I'm going to come ask you for money because that's what you've done, and expect they're going to do it. It's not about that. I think the other thing I would say is engagement really matters, right? There's a thing called the Tarnside curve that looks at like how someone comes in from they know about your organization to interest to an involvement. there's obviously the two axes are engagement and giving. Once you hit engagement with someone, the giving spikes. And that engagement doesn't have to be like, oh, they're volunteering. It could be, they are they're reading your emails, they're reading your newsletters, they're engaged in helping get other people involved, they're volunteering, their kids are involved, whatever it is. So I think if you can figure out engagement, you can grow your ability to kind of secure major gifts more, easier than just kind of relying on kind of traditional fundraising 101.
And Seth and Howard, this is where technology really comes into play. This is the science of fundraising. Yeah. So when we talk about acquiring donors and having the system set up in place, having all of my major gift campaign success has happened because of multi-channel marketing of our campaigns. And then when people come in, are they hitting our websites? Are they hitting our websites from a URL that's in our database already? Do I know who they are? How long do they stay on that website? Is a development officer going to follow up with them? Do they have a $4 million house? Is a development officer going to follow up with them? We can do all of that through data in the back of the house, which is the science of fundraising these days. You have to have somebody in place that understands this stuff, who understands the technology, who understands social media and funnels and how to bring prospects in, track their data and the right systems. And then I don't care what anybody says, you're still not getting a major gift unless you have the major gift officer building the relationship and going from there. So it helps having the technology, having the wherewithal on the science side, but you can have the best people on the science side, but unless you have the artists out there building the relationship, nothing's going to happen, and you just wasted all your prospects.
I would agree. So let me ask you that: are your donors mostly? Is this a worldwide effort now? That because the world is flat and you can reach people digitally so quickly, or are we focused? Do you focus? I imagine you focus anyone related to the Dolphins, Jesse. But Southern Florida, is that the hotbed, and then it grows out from there?
Yeah, it grows out. The Dolphins have millions of fans worldwide, so we engage our fan groups. We engage. We have donors in England, donors in Haiti. We have donors everywhere, Caribbean, Australia. So it's anywhere that we could leverage our brand and leverage our fans to join us in our philanthropic efforts. So a Dolphins fan in South Florida has many options to engage with the team. They can come to concerts. They can come to the games. They could do anything. But a fan in New York may only see us once a year or never. And maybe their way of engaging is hopping on with our philanthropic endeavors. And we've had great success with that. And now introducing our virtual Dolphins Challenge Cancer platform, now you can ride with Team Dolphins anywhere in the world. So that's how we've been able to position that and grow that. So it's really about finding your niche and knowing how to engage people and leveraging technology to bring those people into the program. Now, we're not a heavy major gift organization. We've gotten a few of them. That's not our model. But as we continue to speak about the good work we're doing in cancer research and all that, yeah, we'll get some more. We're more mainly giving the money away that we raise through our endeavors. But technology drives all that. It expands your reach. But you better have the back of the house in place to know who's coming into the pipeline to successfully prospect and then do something with those people. Coming in really doesn't matter unless you have the tools and the people on the back end to follow through with the process.
I just want to switch a little bit there, and I don't know who wants to answer it, but when you're actually, writing a major grant, you're asking for money. It could be for, a cause that doesn't get a ton of money, like women's athletic equipment or something. I'm not making this up, but, or a different cause of, boys and girls clubs and things like that. That's a major, cause. But when someone's actually, what advice would you give to someone writing a grant, asking for funds on a major gift level?
I mean, I can start, and then obviously Dean doesn't. I mean, I think the first thing is don't try to fit a square peg in a round hole. Like, you kind of know right up front whether you're going to be in the sweet spot of this or not. And there's a lot of time if you're going to the True Foundation or or corporate way of filling out the grant request. They're pretty specific around the criterion, and I wouldn't try to just write something and hope that it works out if you don't feel like you're aligned. I think also you really want to talk to someone. You want to build that relationship versus just always send in foundation requests. If you can build a relationship with someone there, ask some questions, make it informational, not ask for money. that's probably a great thing to start kind of understanding where you fit in and having someone that potentially would be in your corner. And I think you just want to really do your research, understand like what they care about and how does your mission and your vision and your approach align. For example, right now, and how we talked about this a little bit yesterday, we look at a lot of things now through what's going on in the world. And if you look at things like healthcare disparity, if you look at things like diversity, equity, and inclusion, and you fit into those categories, and that's what they care about, you want to make sure you're framing your story and your impact through the lens that they care about authentically. Don't try to make something up or kind of have mission creep or things like that. But you can definitely look at what's going on and what they care about and kind of you can't change your mission, but you can change your story about how you talk to them.
Spot on. That's really great. So we're almost going to wrap up here. So I want to give you each a chance to go around and then we'll start with you, Deedon, as a final comment. So you can speak either to, is the future of major gifts, in 5 years from now, is it going to be the same? Is it going to be different? How is it going to be different? A little final wrap up from all of you. We'll start with you, Deedon, and the Rose Bowl and what you're doing.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, to kind of dovetail what Jesse said, I mean, the thing that's going to be ever changing is how we use our organizational voice to engage people, whether they're new people, current donors, people that just have an interest but never are going to write a check. That's the thing that's going to be ever changing. In my opinion, the foundational aspect of fundraising, which has always been built on relationships and being genuine and taking the time with your people and potential people, that's never going to change. I mean, obviously, I think the pandemic has really forced us all into being a bit more apathetic and humble in how we go about our business and what other nonprofits are out there. Because when you're in our business, it's easy to continue building your competitive nature and focusing only on your cause. Like when you're talking to a donor, you think your cause is the most important cause out there. There's no other that can hold the torch to it. And that's great that we all feel that way, because it shows our passion and genuine competitiveness to wanting to see our organizations grow through philanthropy. But in the same respect, with what the pandemic showed us with food shortages and homelessness and all these other things that spiked as a result of that time, those 14, 15 months, I think it allowed us a more humble reset as development officers to approach what we do with a bit more of a sensitivity to the world around us. And I think that's something that we all can grow into. So I think, those foundational elements of fundraising and being a development officer are never going to change. It's always going to be relationship driven. It's always going to be who wants to put in more effort getting in front of those people. But it's going to be the way we communicate and how sensitive and I guess, collaborative we can be with those other causes that frankly are much more important than what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. And the causes that we drive and the missions that we support and raise money towards every day are much bigger than any of the three of us guys on this call today. And we got to keep that in perspective as it relates to the world around us.
Well, beautifully said. Jesse, final comments?
I'll basically a couple things there. I think the core fundamentals of major gift fundraising will never change. Relationship building, collaboration, and Deedon just touched on that, but big gifts don't happen in silos. They happen because you're collaborating with different people in your organization, people that make that happen. So relationships, collaboration, and then articulating the impact are the core. What is going to change is how we reach people. And are we using multi-channel, omni-channel strategies to reach people, to bring them in, to engage them, to make them feel more connected to the process? That's what's going to change. So getting familiar with all the different ways you can get your message out there, all the technology that's at your disposal, how you're going to use the data to narrow down who you're speaking to. Those are the things that are going to change. I do think there'll be a gradual shift to, of wealth in this country. We have to be ready to capture that by speaking the language of my age group and even younger who are coming up that are used to being communicated to and spoken to in a different way.
Excellent. Seth, we'll give you the last word and then we're going to wrap it up.
Yeah, I just agree with everything that Jesse and Deedon said. I'm not going to repeat that. I think that what I would say is we live in this space and we've all been in this for a while. it's kind of like you got to kind of stay at equilibrium. There's highs and lows. There's great moments and there's challenges. And I think the more that you can stay the course and realize there's no cutting corners when it comes to building relationships, and those who are able to authentically do it and build strong and trusted and inspire relationships will be very successful in this field. And I agree with Jesse and Dean that like there is a huge wealth transfer that's in process that will happen. And unless you understand the tools and how people want to be communicated and how they want to be engaged, and you adapt, you may find yourself in a challenging place given the competitive nature in the marketplace of nonprofits and charities out there.
This is great. What a great panel. I just want to say I'm grateful, Jesse, Seth, and Dean, to you guys. What an informative panel. I hope that the viewers that are currently watching will reach out to you on LinkedIn and with any questions, as well as any future on the recordings that people very informative. We took it home. Have a great sports philanthropy world the rest of the day. And thank you for attending and thank you for participating. Great panel. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.